Alright, so today what we're looking at in our Scratch game development is building a super simple scrolling background. Now, we're going to be taking a little bit of inspiration from Mario here. So the original Super Mario game had a somewhat scrolling background with your level. Now, we're going to change it up a little bit and have it so that when there's a little bit of keyboard input, so that if you move left or right, the background's going to sort of move with you. But we're going to also add a little bit of functionality that's going to allow it to sort of repeat itself over and over again with a clone. So hopefully what you're going to find is that this is going to be a little bit different to what you've done before, and we might jump in and have a quick look at Mario so that you can get a little bit of an idea on how that functionality is going to work. Alright, so here we go in Mario. Basically, you can see him running along and the background moves. Now, you can see that as we, say for instance, I guess would be pressing the right key here, the background and the level itself actually all moves with us. Now, we're going to be setting up something that's a little bit different to that, where if we press the left key, it will actually go back a little bit, or go back until you stop pressing left, really. So that's going to make it a little bit different to Mario, but hopefully it'll give us a little bit better of an idea on how we can set up some scrolling elements in our games. Okay, so here we are in Scratch and we are ready to go. So we have a blank project file. We are going to use the Scratch Cat today, but the first step is to create a very, very simple backdrop. Now, I'm not looking for a Picasso art piece here. We're going to come into backdrops. We are going to hover over the little button here. Nope, hover over the little button here. And we're going to come up to the paint option. Now, we're not going to take too long building this one. What I want to do is I just want to grab a fill color. First of all, I'm going to choose like a sort of nice blue, sort of somewhere there, and just draw a very quick rectangle. Can I make that bigger? Yeah, I'm going to move that up to the top up here and grab this slide and drag it all the way down there. Okay, so that's going to be my sky, and then I'm just going to draw one more rectangle, except this time changing my color to green. And then, yeah, paint bucket that one in there. Hey, oh, let's grab the arrow tool. All right, move this guy over. Make him big so he fills up the whole space. And that's it. All right, that's all I want our background to look like. Nothing too special. I'm just going to turn these outlines off so that we don't have a black line. Okay, and that's it. Background is ready to go. So from here, what we're going to do is come back into our sprites, okay? So we're going to click on our sprite, make sure that you change to code view, okay? And then we're going to code our Scratch Cat first. So first thing first, I'm going to move him down so he's standing on the ground rather than in the sky. And then we're going to get to work on our Scratch Cat. So first thing we're going to do with him is we're going to get him so that it looks like he runs when we press the left key and the right key. So some of this code, it's pretty in depth, but we're also going to cheat halfway through so that we don't have to do too much of the coding ourselves. So we're going to grab from the events a when green flag clicked as always, and then come back up to the motion menu, and we are going to just quickly turn his rotation style to just left right. Now that's obviously quite important because we don't want him to turn upside down when we turn him around. Next after that one is a forever loop, so we're going to drop that one in, and then we are going to grab an if and a then. Okay, so this is going to allow us to test for a particular condition. The condition obviously is which key are we pressing, so coming into the sensing menu, we're going to grab a where is it? There we go, key space press, drop that into the condition box, but we're going to change this one to the left arrow. Okay, so we'll code our left arrow first. And then from there, we just need to tell him what we want to happen when we press the left arrow. So when we come back up to motion, we're going to get him to point in a particular direction. So obviously we want him to point this way when we press the left arrow. So that means we're going to need to change that. Now you could drag this all the way around so that you get -90. You can just type -90 in the box there and it will do the same thing. So if I was to press play now, press the left button on the keyboard, Scratch Cat turns around, and that's it. So that's all we've done so far. Now he's not running, so we want to actually use the animations. So in the Scratch Cat itself, there are two costumes. There's this one here and that one there. So it's not a great running animation, but we're just going to use what we've got there because it's quite quick and simple. So the next thing that we can do from here is actually build it so that it changes those costumes until we stop pressing the left arrow. And that's going to be quite important later. So coming back into our control menu, we are going to use one of these repeat until loops as well. So this is going to go inside that if statement related to the left arrow, and we are going to repeat until we are no longer pressing the left arrow. So that's why we're going to grab this not one, and then sensing, bring this one back in again, and we're going to have left arrow. So basically what we're saying here is if we press the left arrow, turn around and make sure you're facing this way, okay? And then while we're still pressing the arrow down, do these things, okay? And the things we're going to do is we're going to come to our looks menu and we're going to grab switch to costume 2. We actually need 2 of them, and I'll show you why in a minute. And we are going to come into our control option and we're going to choose weight. We're going to put one of those underneath each of them. Okay, now that looks like it's the same code for now, but we're going to change this second one back to costume 1. Okay, and the reason we start with 2 and then change back to 1 is because Scratchcat starts in costume number 1, so we want him to change straight away. Now we don't want our wait to be 1 second, we want that to be much, much shorter. Now without this wait, it actually becomes something that happens almost instantly, which means we can't see it with the human eye. So that's why we're putting that very, very small interval in, which is going to change the animation frame rate for us. Okay, and that's it. That's our left arrow sorted. So if we press the green flag here and we hold down the left arrow, you can see that very poorly Scratchcat tries to do some running. Okay, I'm going to stop him there. Now, obviously we need a right arrow as well, and it took us a fair while to program that. So what we're going to do instead is just cheat. And if you come up to the top up here in the space where you've got if, or even over here where it says then, and you right click on screen, you can see you get this little menu pop up. If you select the duplicate one, you'll notice that it takes that whole section of code that we had and duplicates it. We just need to then put it down underneath the original if statement that we wrote, but inside that forever loop. And this is going to give us our right arrow code. Now, obviously it still says left arrow, and that means we need to change some things, but because for the most part, our code is the same, we can change it so that it says right arrow, and then we're just going to switch which way this arrow faces. So now he's going to face 90 instead of -90. All right, so once you've done that duplication, left arrow changes to right arrow, -90 changes to 90, and left arrow changes to right arrow. The rest of the code stays the same. So let's have a look at what we have now. We press the green flag, we get Scratchcat running that way when we press the left button, and when we press the right button, he turns around and he runs back the other way. Okay, so that's kind of cool, but he is obviously running on the spot, and it doesn't look like anything's changing. And this is where we're going to need another sprite. Okay, so the sprite that we are looking for is a cloud in the sky. So you're going to come down to your choose a sprite menu, okay, and click on that one. Come up to the search menu. It is this one here, but we'll go to the search menu, and if you type in cloud, you can see that you get 2 clouds to choose from. Okay, this one actually animates. This one doesn't. We're going to go with this one for now because it's nice and simple. So this gives us our cloud. We can position that somewhere in the sky, but we're actually going to tell it exactly where we want it to go soon. Okay, so what we're going to do with our cloud so that we can create what we call a parallax background is we actually need some different layers. Now we're going to sort of fill the layers a little bit by using a clone. So in this instance, we're just going to have the one extra cloud available to us. Okay, but let's code this one first, and then I'll show you how we code the clone in a minute. So to start with this cloud, we obviously need a green flag clicked up here at the top. We grab that one, and then we're going to tell our cloud to go to a particular spot every time we start. Now we want that kind of close to the middle of the screen, so we're going to drag that one in and change these to -55 and then the y-axis of 80. Okay, and just to make sure that nothing awry happens with this cloud, we are also going to come into our looks menu and we're going to say that we want your size to be 100%. Okay, now this is not necessarily something we have to do because we haven't changed the size of this cloud yet, but by adding this in, it means that if anything was to ever happen to this cloud, we get to get back to these default settings every time we press the green flag button. Okay. And then the next thing that we are going to do is come into our control one and we're going to say create a clone of myself. Okay, so the first 3 things it's going to do, it's going to go to a particular position, it's going to go back to 100% of the size, and then it's going to make a copy of itself, which we'll get to in a little while. Then we're going to look at actually coding our code so that it starts to move on the screen. Because instead of ScratchCat moving and running on the screen, we're going to make the clouds move so that it looks like he's running because they are shifting across the screen. So to do that, we need a forever loop, which we're going to drop at the bottom there. And then we need 2 if statements, okay, similar to last time, except, yeah, we're going to do 2 separate ones this time instead of duplicating them. The first thing that we're going to do is if we press the left arrow, okay, so we're going to grab one of those again from the sensing menu. So if we get the left arrow, okay, we are going to set our X position to be different. Okay, so coming back into motion, we're going to grab this one that says set X. Okay, and we need to make it so that we can add to it. Now this is going to make it nice and quick and easy for us. So we're going to add 10 to our X position. Okay, so we never have to actually think about where our cloud is in the sky. It's just going to automatically find wherever it currently is and add 10 to that to move it to the left. Okay, so the reason that it's not negative 10, okay, because obviously as we move this way, things get negative normally in Scratch, but we want ScratchCat to look like he's running and the clouds obviously to move that way so that it indicates that he's moving to the left-hand side of screen. So that's why we have to reverse that. Now we're going to do the same thing with the right arrow, except down here we obviously change that to a negative 10 because it's the opposite. So we can very quickly grab our set X while we're here. Okay, I'm going to cheat so I don't have to come back into this menu and just put my X position over here waiting for me. I'm going to go into my operators and get my negative 10, drop that in there, put my X position in its correct spot, take away my 10, and then I just need to put my sensing one back in. So we'll drop that one in as well. So we've got sensing, and this one would be right arrow because we already had left. Okay, so if we were to press play now, what actually happens is our cloud moves, and when we press the left arrow, it starts to go one way, and the right arrow goes the other. Now you can see that there's one still in the background. That's because we made that clone of ourselves, except our clone has no code. Okay, because it's technically not the same sprite. All right, so we got that where our thing goes either way. Okay, you can see that effect that we're looking for where the cloud moves opposite to what's happening with ScratchCat. And that means that it sort of gives us that effect that he is moving. So the issue we now have is that when we get to the edge of the screen, our cloud just sort of stops there. Okay, so this is where we need to build a little bit more of a loop so that it'll actually appear back on screen ready to go. So to do that, we're going to build another little set of code. So we're going to come into our events option. I might just stop this so that it doesn't mess about. But we're going to grab another green flag clicked. We're going to grab another forever loop. And we're going to grab 2 more if statements. Okay, one for left and one for right. Okay, and this time what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a look at what the, let's move him back on screen, what the X position is of our cloud and then moving it to the other side of the screen. So when it gets all the way over here, so to the highest positive number it can, it's going to jump all the way back over here to the lowest number it can, which will be in the negatives, and then it'll keep moving back that way. Conversely, if we're moving to the left-hand side of the screen, once it gets to this really low number, it's going to jump over there, but it'll seem like it just appears and it sort of rotated around and scrolled around. So to do this, what we need to do is we need to compare our X position to a fixed number. Now, I'm going to give you the numbers, but the way I worked them out was very simple. I just got my cloud to move, and then I had a look at what number it got to when it got stuck, and then I remembered that number, and I took a little bit off it so that it wouldn't jump around, and then same on this side, I got that really small number there, negative 291. So I made these numbers a little bit smaller. So what we're going to do is we are going to grab some of our operators. Specifically, we're looking for a greater than and a less than. I'm going to grab this greater than one first, and from there I need to go, actually I might put the other one in so I don't have to come back into this menu. So I'm going to put the less than one there as well. Okay, so there's both of those done, and then I'm going to come into my motion menu and I'm going to say when my X position is greater than, and remember over this side it was 295, so I'm going to say when my X position is greater than 285, so obviously we can get further than that, I want to set my X position, where is that one? Set X to, okay, and I'm going to say negative 284. Okay, and I'll explain why it's these two numbers in a minute. And then obviously I'm going to grab an X position for this one again. When my X position is less than negative 285, I'm going to set my X position, where are we? That's it there, to positive 284. Now the reason we took 1 pixel off here is to stop our cloud from getting stuck on the side and just skipping backwards and forwards. Because if we got to positive 285 over here and then set our X position to negative 285, Scratch might glitch out a little bit and put it in the wrong spot, which will mean that it stayed there. Okay, so by telling it to be 1 pixel inside the boundary, it gives us that flexibility to move around. So let's have a quick look at what that one does. Now just remember, we're going to have that clone cloud in the background that is not going to move. But when I press the right hand key, Scratch Cat moves to the right, the cloud moves to the left, and now it loops around from one side of the screen to the other. And obviously when I turn him around, the cloud goes back the other way. He keeps running, but the cloud moves in the opposite direction. So that's really, really cool. We have our one cloud ready to go, but now we need to do something with this clone. Now, the really cool thing with the clone is we are going to copy most of the code and keep it almost exactly the same. Okay, so to start with, we need to come into our control menu and we're going to grab this one here that says when I start as a clone. Now, we need to put a little bit of code here first, and then we're going to actually just copy and paste this section down, okay, because it's going to be the same and we're going to make a small change. So to start with, in our looks menu, we are going to say to it that we want it to go backwards a certain number of layers. Okay, and this is so that our little cloud in the background moves slower than our front cloud in the foreground. So I want you to think about when you're driving in a car with mum and dad or whoever, and you look out the window and there's a mountain in the background, and then there's a whole heap of trees between you and the mountain, and the trees that are on the side of the road seem to go past really, really quickly, but the mountain in the background doesn't really move at all. That's the same thing that we're going to try and do here. So we're going to have a little cloud in the background that moves quite slowly, and then a cloud that's obviously much closer to us that's moving really, really fast. So we're going to tell it to go back, and just to be safe, we might tell it to go backwards 20 layers. This is going to send it way into the background for if we ever added any extra stuff. Then we're going to add effect so that it looks a little bit different. So I'm going to grab this one here that says change color effect by 25, but I'm actually going to change the drop-down menu to brightness and change this to -20. We'll test it on that one to begin with. We're going to tell it to go to the same X and Y coordinate. No, we're not. We're actually going to tell it to go somewhere different, aren't we? Because it looks silly if they were both in the same spot. So we're going to say go to, and then we might set this one just to some sort of random numbers of 100 on the X and 50 on the Y. So these are different numbers to what was up here. And then the last thing we want to do is make it smaller. So back in our looks menu, we might say that we want to set your size to 40%. So it's going to get much, much smaller. Okay, so when it starts as a clone, it's going to go backwards, it's going to get darker, it's going to move to a different spot, and it's going to get smaller. So let's see what that looks like by pressing the green arrow. Okay, so we get a much smaller cloud that's hidden in the background. Now from there, we need to actually get it to start moving just like our other cloud did. So we're going to cheat and we're going to right click here on the forever loop and select duplicate. So you should get something that looks like that where it's just the arrow keys, and we're going to drop that in there really quickly. Okay, once we've done that, because our cloud here needs to move slower, we need to make it slower. So instead of moving 10 spots each time, it's going to only move 5. And then the only other thing we need to do is get our looping set up for our other cloud. So to do that, again, we need to come into our control menu and select the when I start as a clone. Okay, and then we're going to right click on our forever loop up here and select duplicate and pop that down there. But we do need to change these numbers a little bit. Because our cloud's smaller, its X and Y positions don't get as far off the screen in either direction. So that's why we're going to make these numbers a little bit smaller. So when my X position is greater than 250, set my X position to -249. Okay, so that's going to move it just a little bit. And when my X position is less than -250, hopefully you've guessed these numbers now, move me to 249. So now we have our game ready to go, or our app ready to go. All right, so I'm going to press stop there. I'm going to press start. You can see that our two clouds move into position. Scratch Cat's ready to run. If I press the right-hand key, he starts running. Both of the clouds start moving at different speeds. Okay, and they keep looping across screen. Obviously, conversely, if we turn Scratch Cat around, he starts running back the other way and the cloud starts slowly moving in the background. The other cool feature that the game has, if I stop it just here, is we can see that our gray cloud at the front is in front of our dark cloud in the background. So that's just a nice little really cool feature that we have there. So hopefully that explains, first of all, what a parallax background is. You might have seen these on the web where you have different things scrolling in front of others. It might be a nice background image with some text scrolling over the top or something like that. So what a parallax background is, how to get a looping thing happening in your Scratch project, as well as how to actually get clones working and how you can modify your clone code so that it looks a little bit different. So that wraps everything up for this video, and I hope to see you in the next video of the series.